to welcome you to this Ada Lovelace Day lecture, where you'll be learning about women in science from my colleague Dr. Helen Cluse. Ada Lovelace Day is a day all about celebrating the achievements of women in STEM, and it fits very much with the purpose and the mission of the Royal Astronomical Society. We're here to promote the understanding and study of astronomy and geophysics, but we also want the community of astronomers and geophysicists to better reflect society and for anyone to be able to participate in these sciences, no matter what their sex, gender, ethnicity, ability. So Ada Lovelace is really important to us. Dr. Helen Cluse, our colleague, before she came here, she completed a PhD in physics at the University of Southampton, specialising in neutron stars, and that was before a Master's in Philosophy of Physics at the University of Leeds. She has a prize in science writing, she's been shortlisted for a science writing prize by the Wellcome Trust, and since she's been working here, one of her most notable contributions has been to diversity work, especially her initiative to set up a Twitter account tweeting about one woman in STEM per day for a whole year. I've learned so much from Helen, and I'm so pleased that she'll be sharing these stories with you this evening, and I can't think of a better way to celebrate Ada Lovelace Day. Helen.
Thank you.
I'm Helen, as Sean says, I'm going to talk to you today about how women have shaped the history of astronomy and our understanding of the universe. Then at the end, I'll talk very briefly about how this has led to the situation that we're in now and what we can do to possibly improve things. So first of all, imagine if you were born thousands of years ago, before civilization. There'd be no skyline, no light pollution, and when it got dark, it would really get dark. So people noticed that the stars would move in a pattern. So they form a circle around the northern star, the Southern Cross. And people like to find patterns in things. So people can see patterns in the stars in a similar way to how you can see patterns in clouds. So we call these patterns constellations, and these act like signposts on a map. So people can navigate at night when there's no landmarks, or on the ocean, when they cross the ocean. So there's evidence that people crossed the oceans about 65,000 years ago. So this is so long ago that we weren't even the only people on Earth back then. We shared the Earth with a different type of human called Neanderthals. And these died out only about 30,000 years ago. So I think it's reasonable to say that Neanderthals may also have been astronomers. So we do know that somebody carved what we think is a prehistoric constellation into a mammoth tusk about 32,000 years ago. And we think this is Orion. And we know that somebody painted what we think is the constellation Taurus with star clusters in a cave in France about 17,000 years ago. Obviously, we don't know the gender of anybody that did this, but we do know that women were making similar paintings in the same caves at the same time. So scientists think that about 3/4 of the hands on this painting belong to women. So I think it's fairly safe to say that women have probably been a part of astronomy since the beginning. So people that paid close attention to the sky, they could see that there are 7 objects that move differently from this sphere of stars. So this is the sun and the moon, and 5 visible planets, which is Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. So the sun and moon move in kind of predictable patterns over predictable time periods, and these could be used to track the seasons and to work out when summer was going to begin and end. So this became important about 10,000 years ago. Now that's when the Ice Age ended. So around that time the Earth started to get warmer, and it became warm enough for us to be able to grow crops. So this is about 1,000 years after we built the first city, the city of Jericho on the West Bank. So to be clear, people of all genders were using astronomy as a tool to explore the universe back when Neanderthals still existed. And people of all genders built the first city 1,000 years before the end of the Ice Age, when mammoths still walked the earth. So our knowledge of astronomy was so good at the time that as soon as it became warm enough, we were able to start farming, and this meant we had more time to do other things, so people could stay in the same place. began to domesticate animals. Cows were domesticated, and grow crops, rice and wheat were cultivated. And towns and cities began to form all around the world. So about 5,000 years ago, people developed a written language. And one of the first person whose name was written down was Enheduanna. Now, Enheduanna was born about 4,000 years ago in a Sumerian city, which is part of modern-day Iraq. She was born a princess, but she trained as an astronomer, and she became high priestess to the moon goddess and the moon god. About 2,000 years ago, Agalenki was predicting solar eclipses in ancient Greece. People called her a sorceress and said the moon obeys Agalenki. But what she'd actually done is she'd worked out solar eclipses happen periodically. They happen every 18 years, 10 days and 8 hours. And the reason that she'd been able to work this out is because people like Enheduanna had kept precise astronomical records. And these have been maintained, and so we could pass this knowledge between generations. So I think it's pretty clear that women have been a part of astronomy since the beginning. But as civilization formed, people began to develop rules about what people could and couldn't do, and obviously women ended up having less rights. So when women did make discoveries, they often weren't credited. Their names weren't recorded, and a lot of their stories are probably lost to history. But fortunately, we do know about some. So Hypatia, for example, was born about 400 AD in Egypt. She wrote taught mathematics, and she edited two of the most important textbooks of the time. She was a pagan, she was murdered by Christian monks, so she became known as a martyr of philosophy. Room Arastrolabi developed instruments called astrolabes, and these are devices that you can use to measure your latitude, just using the stars. Zulema Lastrologa was an astronomer who's said to have studied the stars from a medieval tower on the coast of Majorca. And of course, there are lots of other examples. So science became sort of better defined in the 16th, 17th centuries with the scientific revolution in Europe. So when that happened, scientists like Copernicus, Tycho, Kepler proved that the Earth orbits the Sun. Around the same time, Galileo used a telescope for the first time to look at the stars. He saw Jupiter's moons, the rings of Saturn. And shortly after this, Newton published his theory of gravitation, and science, as we've sort of come to know it, began. So at this point, academic clubs, societies, institutions like the Royal Society formed. The Royal Society formed in 1660. Of course, women were excluded from all of these places, and yet, of course, women continued